Hi, Tony Shark here from the Chicago Rocker and Shark Entertainment, bringing you a personal blog for a change tonight. Um, I had some news that came across to me a few weeks ago, and I alluded to it in a Facebook post and didn't really talk much about it because it was a bit of a shock. A lot of people identify their youth through Paradox and those shows and Glen Dobbs and John Dobbs. Glen has stage 4 lung cancer right now. It's something that hit me sort of like a ton of bricks. So at this point, John says to me that he would like to organize a benefit to help Glen and his family with the medical bills and expenses and things like that that are coming together. So on Sunday, May 1st, at Q Bar in Glendale Heights, the old Shark City, we are going to have a benefit to help raise money for Glen Dobbs and his family. As John was talking to me one night at a show, he started alluding to the fact that Glen wasn't doing real well and things weren't going well, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, right?" And I'm like, "No, what? I don't know what you're talking about." And so he informed me of what was happening. I sat there and was in disbelief, got very quiet, and really didn't hear very much of the rest of the conversation. John and Glen and I have always fought like brothers. There's times when the three of us were very in sync with each other. There's times when the two of them were fighting. There's times when I was fighting with them. All this kind of stuff, and it literally was that kind of relationship where we were always sort of at each other. But ultimately, always it came back to the brotherhood. That's at least the way I felt about it. And it's been a very interesting 30-something year friendship. We're going to do a show from 3 o'clock till 8 or 9 o'clock. We're going to have several different bands and probably a jam session and things like that. And we are organizing it right now and putting it together. So if any of you are interested in helping us put the show together, whether to perform or volunteer or do any of that kind of stuff, please send me a personal message on Facebook, and we'll see what we can do. So Jackie and I are going to help organize it along with John and his fiancée Heather, and the four of us are going to put this together just to try and help out the family. I want to help his kids and help him try and get over this situation as gracefully and as genuinely as we possibly can. He has a lot of friends, but if you're a fan of hard rock or heavy metal in here in Chicago, you owe a lot of that in the club circuit, in the local band situation, to Glen Dobbs. When Paradox first started playing, as I said, the Jade 50s were the big band of the era. There weren't a lot of clubs that would allow a quote-unquote heavy metal band that was playing covers of Judas Priest or Def Leppard or those kind of bands, the Scorpions, all of which Glen sang to the T. They wouldn't let him play, and he sort of pioneered this Being the oldest member of our little unit, he was driving the force in the clubs while we were driving things in the high schools. And he really paved the way for anybody who plays this kind of music to get a chance to play live in venues across Chicago. Every time we went to a club, it was a new club because nobody would ever let anybody play that. There were people before this, like the Boys from Illinois, with Dirty Dan and Mike Tafoya. And there were other bands like that that were sort of rock and roll bands, but they weren't the Judas Priest heavy metal craziness that Paradox was playing. So it was sort of forging a new path. This is a guy who was a trailblazer. Along with his brother John, they took Paradox and that genre of music, sort of waved the flag and said, we're heavy metal and we are unapologetic about it. So when they had the chance to go and play, everybody else got to follow. So we'd break a club, we'd bring some openers, we'd move on, and other people got a chance to go in there and play. At the Thirsty Whale, the more popular Paradox got, the more popular the genre got, the more bands that got to play there, all the way across the line. You walk into a Catholic high school and say you're a heavy metal band and you want to put on a concert. They thought you were crazy. But John and Glen and Jerry and Gary Vermette at times and Nick Hoklanis and Dave Schenkel and Frank Rotondo and everybody who was in that band at some point paved the way for other people to be able to play. So on Sunday, May 1st, again from 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock, if you're a fan of this kind of music, whether you are a big supporter of Paradox or a friend of Glen or John or any of us, I think you sort of owe it to everybody to sort of come up. I've done Thirsty Whale reunions in the past, and we've had thousands of people attend. And it's sort of like walking into Cheers where everybody knows your name. This night, Sunday, May 1st, I'd like the same feeling to evolve. I'd like to get Glen up on stage, and hopefully he can try and participate one way or the other. Paradox is going to be there. There will be other bands that we will be inviting, and I just think that it would be really great if we could have a big turnout and make this a special night for everyone. When you were a kid, was there that guy that was sort of like the cool guy in the room, that he just sort of walk in and take over the place? You know, you're a teenager and you're there with a bunch of other people, but he would just walk in and all of a sudden, you know, he was the life of the party. He was the focus. He was the spotlight. Well, to me, that guy was Glen Dobbs. I had met Glen in 1979, and when he came on board to sing for Paradox, there was a short stint where there was another singer in Paradox for a short time. Jerry and I went to high school together, and this was Jerry's band, and he brought in this new singer and this new guitar player, and they were absolutely bigger than life, much more so than we had ever sort of experienced in that situation. And when I met Glen, it was just the kind of thing where you sort of looked at him and knew he had that. He was just the kind of guy that when he was on stage, absolutely commanded the stage. We were young. He was a little bit older than we were, just by a couple years, but the band started and we played every major club in the area at that point, even though at some point we were underage. And we played high schools across Chicago. That's back when they let high schools have concerts. And we sort of had our own little rock and roll circuit of high schools where we would go around and play. One of them was Gordon Tech High School in Chicago. John and Glen did not live very far from there, and we played there several times, one time of which we had a documented 2,000 person show inside their gymnasium. That night, A&R people were there from Atlantic Records, and Glen was larger than life. And we were trying to get the band signed to a record label, and we were all going to go to Los Angeles and become big rock stars. Certain things happened where that didn't happen, but the band sort of became legendary in Chicago circuits. We played, obviously, the Thirsty Whale as a home base, and was a sellout just about every time they played there, and all across the tri-state area pretty much. And this was back when heavy metal was just starting to get its foot in the door. Paradox played a Monday night at the Thirsty Whale for their first show, and on a Monday night they brought in 300 people. At that point, the big band at the Thirsty Whale was called Jade 50s, and they were basically that. They were a 50s cover band, and that night is the night that the Thirsty Whale changed gears forever. The owners there decided that this might be a new way to go. I was very identified within that circuit of bands, and took Paradox as far as we could possibly take it on a local level. Glen was the guy that when you looked up on stage and he was in his spandex and his long flowing hair and his screaming vibrato and just the swagger that he had up on stage, it was like he was a magnet to bring people in. So one last time, Sunday, May 1st, Q Bar North in Glendale Heights, and I hope to see you all there. Thanks.